The rain lashed against the windshield like a relentless whip, blurring the world outside into a gray haze. Ethan Hayes gripped the steering wheel of his battered old sedan, his knuckles white against the cracked vinyl. The dashboard clock glowed 8:53 p.m., mocking him with its steady tick forward. 7 minutes. That's all he had left to make it to the interview at TechSmith, the tech firm in downtown Seattle, where a senior programmer position waited the kind of job that could finally pull him and his daughter out of the moldy one-bedroom apartment they called home. No more scraping by on freelance gigs, no more choosing between groceries and Mia's asthma inhalers. This was his shot at stability, at giving his 7-year-old the life she deserved. He pressed the accelerator harder, the engine whining in protest as the tires sliced through puddles on the slick highway. Seattle's infamous downpours had turned the roads into rivers, but Ethan couldn't slow down. Not now. His mind flashed to Mia curled up on the worn couch under a threadbare blanket, her babysitter, his elderly neighbor Mrs. Jenkins, watching over her. 3 years since his wife, Sarah, had passed in that car accident, leaving him to navigate single parenthood in a city that chewed up the unprepared. He juggled night shifts at a warehouse, coding side hustles, anything to keep the lights on. But Mia's coughs echoed in the damp walls of their apartment, a constant reminder of how close they were to breaking. "Come on," Ethan muttered to himself, wiping fog from the inside of the glass with his sleeve. The wiper slapped rhythmically, barely keeping up. He glanced at the clock again, 8:54 p.m. 6 minutes. He could still make it if traffic stayed light. And then, without warning, a shadow darted into the beam of his headlights. A figure stumbled out from the roadside, slipping on the wet asphalt and crashing down in the middle of the lane. Ethan's heart slammed into his throat. He jammed the brakes, the car hydroplaning sideways with a sickening screech. The vehicle fishtailed inches from clipping a street lamp before shuddering to a halt. His breath came in ragged gasps, the seatbelt digging into his chest. Through the rain-streaked window, he saw her, a woman heavily pregnant, clutching her belly as she lay sprawled in a puddle. Her face was pale under the flickering sodium lights, her dark hair plastered to her skin. She gasped, one hand reaching out weakly. "Help! I can't breathe!" Her voice pierced the storm, raw and desperate. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He stared at her, then at the clock, 8:55 p.m. 5 minutes. The interview was at 9 o'clock sharp, and TechSmith was notorious for their no-excuses policy. If he stopped now, he'd never make it. But if he drove on... What if she didn't make it? The road was deserted, no other cars in sight, just the endless curtain of rain. His phone buzzed in the cup holder, a text from Mia. He glanced down. "Daddy, you got this." A simple heart emoji, but it hit him like a punch. Mia, with her gap-toothed smile and unwavering faith in him, waiting at home for news of the big job. That would mean pizza nights and a bedroom without leaks. The woman groaned again, her eyes locking onto his through the glass wide with terror. "Please, don't leave me." Her words were barely audible over the downpour, but they cut through him. Ethan's throat tightened. The rain pounded harder as if urging him to decide. He could floor it, pretend he hadn't seen. No one would know. But he would. With a curse under his breath, he unbuckled his seatbelt and flung open the door, stepping out into the torrent. Cold water soaked him instantly, but he didn't care. He rushed to her side, kneeling in the puddle. Hey, it's okay. I'm here. Can you hear me?" Her bag lay torn nearby, papers scattering in the wind like forgotten dreams. In that moment, as he reached out to help her up, Ethan had no idea that this single act of kindness would cost him everything he thought he needed and lead him to something far greater. What would you do if you had to choose between the job that could save your child's future and saving a stranger in desperate need? Ethan knelt in the pouring rain, the cold water seeping through his jeans as he reached out to the woman. Her breaths came in shallow, ragged gasps, her lips tinged with blue. "Hey, can you hear me? What's your name?" His voice cut through the storm steady, despite the adrenaline surging in his veins. She clutched her swollen belly tighter, her eyes fluttering open just enough to meet his. "Laya," she managed between labored breaths. "I'm dizzy. My belly hurts." Her voice trailed off into a whimper, her body shuddering from the cold or pain or both. Ethan scanned the empty road frantically. No headlights pierced the darkness, no sirens wailed in the distance, just the relentless drum of rain on asphalt. He fumbled for his phone, dialing 911 with numb fingers. 1 ring, 2, 3. The line clicked, but it was busy. "Damn it," he muttered, shoving the phone back into his pocket. He glanced at the dashboard clock through the open car door, 8:52 p.m. 8 minutes until the interview. He could still make it if he left now, if he called for help and drove on. But Laya arched in pain, a low moan escaping her lips. Swallowing hard, Ethan made his choice. "Okay, Laya. I'm getting you help. Just breathe with me, slow and steady." He shrugged off his jacket, draping it over her shoulders, the fabric already soaked, but better than nothing. She was lighter than he expected as he helped her to her feet, too light for someone so far along in pregnancy. Her arm wrapped around his neck for support, and as he guided her toward the car, he noticed faint bruises circling her wrist like marks from a tight grip. A chill ran through him that had nothing to do with the rain. Who had done that to her? He eased her into the passenger seat, buckling her in carefully. "Hold on. I'll get you to a hospital." He slammed the door and hurried around to the driver's side, sliding behind the wheel. The engine roared back to life, and he cranked the heat to full blast the vents, blowing warm air that fogged the windows even more. As the car peeled away from the roadside, Ethan's mind raced. Last night he'd stared at the gas gauge for what felt like hours, debating whether to fill up. In the end, he'd put in just $10 worth, enough to get to the interview and back, but not a drop more. Money was that tight. The dashboard now blinked a low fuel warning, a mocking orange light that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. He thought of their apartment, the black mold creeping up the bathroom walls, the leaky faucet that dripped endlessly, the single bed they shared because the couch was too lumpy for Mia's small frame. She'd woken up coughing again that morning, her little chest heaving. "It's okay, Daddy," she'd said, forcing a smile as she tied her own shoelaces. "I can walk to school today." And then there was the note she'd slipped into his pocket before he left, a crayon drawing of them eating pizza with her scrawled words, "When you get the job, we can have this." Ethan gripped the wheel tighter, his eyes stinging. This job wasn't about luxury, it was about survival, about giving Mia a chance at normalcy, away from the constant worry of eviction notices and skipped meals. The clock ticked to 8:54 p.m. 6 minutes. Ethan merged onto the highway, pushing the speed limit as much as the slick roads allowed. Laya shifted beside him, her breathing still uneven. They might find me." "They might," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wipers. "Who?" Ethan asked, glancing at her. "Who's finding you?" She shook her head weakly, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "Just, please, anywhere with people." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fear. Ethan didn't press. She was in no state for questions. His phone buzzed, a reminder from Tech Smith. "Please arrive 10 minutes early." He silenced it with a jab of his finger. 8:56 p.m. 4 minutes. The exit for downtown loomed ahead, but so did a sign for a small urgent care clinic off the next ramp. Ethan's stomach twisted. The hospital was farther, but this place might be quicker. Laya cried out suddenly, doubling over. "It hurts." "Hold on," Ethan said, veering toward the clinic exit. He pulled into the dimly lit parking lot, tires splashing through puddles. Scooping her up again, ignoring the sharp twinge in his back from old warehouse injuries, he carried her through the doors. The reception area was sparse. A tired nurse behind the counter looking up with mild surprise. "What happened?" she asked, eyeing Ethan's drenched clothes and scuffed boots. "She fell on the road. She's pregnant, having trouble breathing, stomach pain." Ethan explained, breathlessly, setting Laya down in a chair. The nurse frowned, glancing between them. "You her husband?" "No," Ethan said, wiping rain from his face. I stopped to help." Her eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face, as if a guy like him, looking rough around the edges, showing up with a vulnerable woman late at night, spelled trouble. She nodded curtly and called for a doctor, wheeling Laya toward the back. Ethan paced the waiting area, his shoes squeaking on the linoleum. He checked his phone. 9:03 p.m. The interview had started without him. His chest tightened, a wave of regret crashing over him. What had he done? If you're listening to this right now, what would you do? Would you turn back and race to the interview that could change your life, or stay knowing it might cost you everything? Keep going, because the price of kindness is about to get steeper than you can imagine. Ethan stood frozen in the clinic's sterile hallway, his phone still pressed to his ear as the dial tone droned on like a funeral dirge. The email had popped up seconds after, application status rejected. No explanation, no second chance. He let out a bitter laugh, his eyes burning. One life, not worth a damn meeting, he whispered to himself, shoving the device into his pocket. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the linoleum floor. Inside the exam room, nurses hurried back and forth, the red emergency sign pulsing like a warning. He told himself he'd made the right call, but that right was already unraveling thread by thread in ways that made his stomach churn. A security guard approached, his uniform crisp against the chaos. He eyed Ethan from head to toe, drenched shirt clinging to his frame-scuffed boots, leaving wet prints, face drawn with exhaustion. "You the one who brought her in?" the guard asked, his tone flat but laced with suspicion. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, she fell on the road. I just helped." The guard glanced toward the door, crossing his arms. "She say who you are yet?" Ethan blinked. "No, I don't even know her. I just stopped." A frown creased the guard's face. "Step over there, please. We need to keep the area clear for patient safety." He gestured to a corner bench away from the action, like Ethan was some potential threat. The words hit like a slap. Ethan moved as instructed, his back against the cold wall. He'd just saved someone, and now he was being treated like a suspect. Heat rose in his chest, but he swallowed it down. Society didn't always reward kindness. Sometimes it questioned it. A nurse emerged from the room, whispering to the guard. He nodded, then turned back to Ethan. "We've called the police to take a statement." Ethan's heart skipped. "Police, why?" "What did I do wrong?" The guard shrugged, unmoved. "Standard procedure. If you're clean, no problem." The casual dismissal stung. Ethan knew how he looked, a guy down on his luck showing up soaked and frantic with a pregnant stranger. Easy to peg as trouble. He paced a small circle, the rain still dripping from his hair. He thought he was doing good, but the world seemed hell-bent on punishing it with doubt. The doctor stepped out next, peeling off his gloves. "She's stabilizing. Dehydrated, high stress levels. Looks like she hasn't been taking care of herself properly." He paused, eyeing Ethan. "You family—" "No." Ethan repeated, frustration creeping in. "I just helped." The doctor nodded warily. "We need contact info for her relatives." Ethan followed him into the room. Laya lay on the bed, an IV drip in her arm, her face still pale but her eyes open. When she saw him, relief flickered across her features. "Please, don't go," she whispered, her voice trembling. "If they find me, they'll take me back." Ethan froze. "Who?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm running away." She didn't elaborate, but the fear in her voice was raw, unfiltered. A chill settled over him. This wasn't just a fall in the rain, she was fleeing something dark, and now he was tangled in it. Before he could respond, 2 police officers entered the hallway, their radios crackling. One addressed the nurse, then turned to Ethan. "You the guy who brought her in?" "Yes," Ethan said, stepping forward. "What's your relation to her?" "None. I saw her fall and helped." The officers exchanged glances, one pulling out a notepad. Their eyes scanned him, clothes posture, everything. "ID, please." Ethan handed over his wallet, watching as they jotted notes. Then came the question that floored him. "You know why she was out there alone? Sure you didn't force her into your car?" "What?" "No." Ethan's voice rose, incredulous. "I stopped to help. She was collapsing." The officer held up a hand. "Just doing our job." But the implication hung there heavy and unjust. Ethan's phone rang again. TechSmith HR. He answered, clinging to a shred of hope. "Please listen, I was helping someone. She's pregnant in the clinic. I can prove it. Doctor's here." The voice on the other end was curt. "We have a strict policy. You were late, that's it." "But I was saving—" "I'm sorry, best of luck." Click. Ethan stared at the screen, the rejection sinking in like lead. Good deed punished, plain and simple. Anger bubbled up, hot and helpless. As if on cue, his phone buzzed once more. Mia, on the screen. He answered, forcing his voice steady. Hey, kiddo. Daddy. You done yet? Did you get it? Tomorrow I can tell my teacher you have a new job. Ethan closed his eyes, tears pricking. I was a little late, sweetie. A pause. Then softly, late means no. He couldn't speak. It's okay. Daddy, Mia said, her voice small but trying to be brave. We can eat ramen again, as long as you're not sad. The words shattered him, his little girl already wise beyond her years comforting him instead of the other way around. Ethan gripped the phone tighter, fighting the sob in his throat. Good people got screwed and kids paid the price. The door creaked open. Laya beckoned him weakly. She pressed a crumpled business card into his hand. I don't know how to thank you, but if you're in trouble because of me, call this. Ethan barely glanced at it, too drained to care. He pocketed it. You okay now? Her eyes filled with guilt. You lost something because of me, didn't you? He forced a sad smile. Yeah, I did. Let me make it right, she whispered. Ethan stepped back into the hall, the rain still pattering outside. In his pocket, the damp card held a name that could change everything, but he didn't know it yet. The morning light filtered through the grimy window of Ethan's apartment, casting long shadows across the cluttered kitchen table. He hadn't slept much, the events of the night replaying in his mind like a bad dream. His phone buzzed again, an email from TechSmith HR. He opened it, his jaw tightening as he read, Your failure to attend reflects poor reliability. We expect professionalism from all candidates. The words stung like salt in a wound, not just rejection, but an accusation. Ethan slammed the phone down, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Professionalism, he muttered, like leaving a dying woman in the rain. Before he could spiral further, the device rang a number he didn't recognize. He answered warily. Hello? A polished voice responded. This is from TechSmith. We need you to come in today. Ethan frowned. For what I was already rejected. A brief pause. The CEO wants to meet you in person. He nearly dropped the phone. The CEO! Yes, it's required. Can you be here by noon? The call ended abruptly, leaving Ethan staring at the screen. His mind raced who would the CEO want with a no-show like him. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out the crumpled business card Laya had given him. The ink had smeared from the rain, but the text was legible. Laya Hart, Chief Executive Officer TechSmith. His breath caught. No, it couldn't be. His hands began to tremble as the pieces clicked into place. The woman he'd saved last night, the one who'd cost him everything, was the head of the company that had just slammed the door in his face. Mia stirred from the couch, rubbing her eyes. Dad, you look pale. He forced a smile, tucking the card away. Nothing, kiddo. Just gotta go somewhere. By noon, Ethan stood in the lobby of TechSmith's sleek glass tower in downtown Seattle, feeling utterly out of place. His best shirt was wrinkled, his shoes scuffed from years of wear. Employees in tailored suits bustled past, casting curious glances. An assistant led him to the top floor, ushering him into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the rainy cityscape. He paced, nerves fraying, until the door opened. Laya entered, transformed. Gone was the vulnerable woman from the storm. In her place stood a poised executive in a sharp navy suit, her hair pulled into a neat bun, exuding quiet authority. But when her eyes met his, a flicker of recognition softened her expression. The room's occupants, HR reps and executives, stood at attention. Good morning, Ms. Hart, one said. Ethan's world tilted. You're the CEO, Laya nodded, gesturing for him to sit as she took her place at the head of the table. Yes, Ethan. He remained standing, a mix of shock and anger bubbling up. Last night you let me. I lost that interview because of you. I got rejected for saving you. The room fell silent. Laya didn't flinch. She placed his resume folder on the table. Your CV is strong, skills, experience impressive, but a resume doesn't show me who you are when it costs you something. Ethan stared. What? She leaned forward, her voice measured. Last night, you could have driven on. No one would have known. You'd have made your interview, maybe even gotten the job. But you chose to stop for a stranger. And I got punished for it, he shot back, his voice edged with bitterness. Laya turned to the HR director, her tone turning icy. Who made the call to reject him? The man shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, per policy. Policy doesn't penalize decency, she interrupted. Draft an email retracting that rejection. Apologize, not to me, to him. The HR rep paled, but nodded. Whispers rippled through the room. Ethan shook his head. I don't want pity, or some handout because you feel guilty. Laya met his gaze steadily. This isn't pity, Ethan. It's respect. She slid a new document across the table, an offer letter. I'm not offering you the position you applied for. I'm offering something higher, my executive team. I need someone who, when they see someone in trouble, doesn't ask if it's worth it. They ask, what needs to be done? He picked up the paper, scanning the details, a salary that made his head spin, benefits, including health coverage for Mia. But he set it down. Why me? You don't even know me. I saw enough last night, she replied softly, and I need that kind of person now more than ever. As the meeting wrapped, Laya asked him to stay behind. The door clicked shut, leaving them alone. She lowered her voice, vulnerability creeping back into her eyes. Last night wasn't just an accident. I was running. From who? Ethan asked, a knot forming in his gut. Someone who wants this child and control of this company. She placed a hand on her belly. I need you here, Ethan. Not just to work, but to witness the truth. To help me protect what's mine. Laya's gaze held steady on the HR director, her voice cutting through the tense silence like a blade. You labeled him unreliable for being late. The man fidgeted, his face draining of color. Per protocol, ma'am. Protocol doesn't excuse insulting integrity. She interjected, her tone unyielding but controlled. She tapped the table lightly. Today you draft a retraction email. Apologize. Not to me, to him. The room went still, no one daring to breathe. The director nodded stiffly, murmuring compliance. Ethan watched, a mix of vindication and unease washing over him. It wasn't revenge, but acknowledgement. Something rare in his world of quiet struggles. Laya turned back to him, her expression softening. You don't have to decide now. But before you leave, know this. Last night I didn't just lose my footing in the rain. Power doesn't protect you from everything. She paused, her hand resting on her belly. When I fell, the only one who shielded me was a man with nothing to gain. Ethan swallowed. What do you mean? I thought control would keep me safe, she said quietly. But you showed me otherwise. I'm not hiring you out of guilt. I respect what you did, and I need that now. That afternoon, Ethan returned to the apartment, the offer letter burning a hole in his pocket. Mia bounded from the couch, her eyes wide. Dad, why home early? He knelt, pulling her into a tight hug. She stiffened in surprise. You okay? He pulled back, his voice thick. I'm scared, Mia. Scared you won't see fairness in this world. She tilted her head, her small hand on his cheek. I don't need fair. I need you. Tears blurred his vision. He showed her the letter, not the salary, but the line, we would be honored to have you. Mia sounded it out, then beamed. They want you for real. Yeah, he whispered. They do. On his first day, Ethan stood in the elevator, nerves jangling. Laya joined him, handing over a slim file. The man I'm fleeing is a former partner. He wants this baby for leverage and the company. Her eyes darkened. I need you to see the truth documented. Help me safeguard what's mine. Ethan scanned the legal terms, the threats outlined in stark detail. This wasn't just a job. It was stepping into a storm. He met her gaze. I'm not the strongest or smartest, but I won't run. She nodded, a faint smile breaking through. That's all I need. Someone real. By evening, a new email arrived from HR. We apologize for our error. Your actions demonstrated true integrity. We were mistaken. Ethan read it silently, a weight lifting. For once, kindness hadn't gone unseen. At home, he texted Mia, got the job. Her reply, I knew it, Dad's good. Good people get seen. Ethan stared at the screen, a quiet resolve settling in. Kindness wasn't the shortest path to success, but it was the only one that let you remain yourself upon arrival. If you had just 7 minutes to a life-changing interview and saw a pregnant woman collapse in the rain, would you stop to help? Why?